When I go back and play games, especially remakes of older games, I'm always interested if I can see what in the game would have wowed people back when it was released. One of my favorite examples of this was the Live Alive remake from last year, which had so many incredible moments that blew me away today, let alone those who played it over 20 years earlier. Star Ocean: The Second Story R doesn't quite reach that level for me, as there are certain intrinsic issues that I'll get into, but I also can easily see why it is held in such high esteem by Star Ocean fans and RPG fans in general. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is not just a fantastic remake of a classic game, it's the sort of game that lingers in your mind after playing and develops a following among a fanbase. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is an action RPG developed by Gemdrops and published by Square Enix. It is a remake of the original PlayStation release developed by main series developers Tri-Ace and published by Enix. The original release came out in 1998 in Japan, 1999 in North America, and 2000 in the PAL regions. The game also received a not as well known sequel called Star Ocean Blue Sphere that has never come west. Then we had the remastered Star Ocean Second Evolution developed by Gemdrops, which came to the PSP in 2008 in Japan and 2009 everywhere else, and got a Japanese port to PS Vita and PS4 as well. It's clear that even with the up and down trajectory of the Star Ocean series, Star Ocean: The Second Story remained a beloved game and a focus for the series. Given that, an updated release would not have been surprising, but a full remake probably still caught even die-hard fans off guard. Star Ocean: The Second Story R redid much of the game, changing up the combat system, adopting the 2.5D style popularized by Octopath Traveler, and rearranging music amongst other changes. This remake was released on November 2nd, 2023 for Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC. The game has always garnered strong reviews through every iteration, and the remake may in fact have been the best of the bunch with solid reviews across the board. While sales weren't incredible, it is notable that the remake outsold the last main entry to the series, Divine Force, at its opening week. That plus clear good word of mouth makes me confident that Second Story R will perform well in the sales department as long as Square Enix keeps their expectations realistic. Star Ocean: The Second Story R gives you a choice of protagonist. You can either be Space Federation Ensign Claude C. Kenny or Magical Provincial Girl Raina Lanford. There are slight differences between their routes, depending on who you pick, not to the same extent as a game such as Scarlet Nexus, but enough to make it worth it to those curious to do another playthrough with whoever you didn't pick the first time. I do wish they had made more distinctions between each character's route, as I felt the story could have been more compelling that way, but that's just my opinion. Regardless of whoever you pick, the story picks up with Raina and Claude meeting in the Sacred Forest on the planet of Expel. Claude having been sent from a portal on an entirely different planet and awaking after his involuntary trip just in time to save Raina from a monster. In doing so, Claude inadvertently acts in a way that makes Raina and the villagers believe he is the fabled hero of light, come to save them in a time of crisis. The crisis in this case being a huge horde of monsters invading after an object called the Sorcery Globe fell from space. Claude and Raina then are tasked with investigating the Sorcery Globe and putting an end to the monsters threatening the people, an investigation Claude also hopes will reveal a way for him to get back home, and Raina hopes will reveal more information about her mysterious past. Great setup for a game, so it comes down to execution, and I think the game sticks the landing. Star Ocean: The Second Story R has a very good plot that keeps the action going with no slow moments and keeps the audience engaged. Along with Claude and Raina, you can recruit up to 6 additional characters out of a set of 12. You may want to consult a guide on recruiting though, since there are 2 characters that are exclusive depending on your main character choice, and then several characters who are mutually exclusive. For example, if you recruit Ashton, you cannot then recruit Opera, and that prevents you from recruiting another character down the line. There are plenty of choices to make, and they are legitimately hard. I'm sorry, Priestess, but I need to try Bowman on this route. Please don't be mad at me. Unfortunately, because of all the choices you have in your party members and composition, they don't get to contribute more than a piece of dialogue occasionally to the main story. They have their recruitment quest, and after that most of them are done for the rest of the game. It feels like wasted potential to me. It made the secondary characters feel flat, even with the additional chances to interact with them in private actions. After playing through, I honestly think I would have preferred if I wasn't given a choice of party members, and then those characters could have been more involved and the party could have felt more like a group. That is perhaps my biggest critique of Star Ocean: The Second Story R as a game. Where the characters are a lot more distinct and useful, though, is in combat. The gameplay system has been completely revamped for the original and remastered for the remake, but at least the surface level action RPG basis is still there. You have up to 4 characters taking on the various enemies. Using standard attacks and certain abilities, you can whittle down enemies' shields and health. If an enemy has their shield completely depleted, they are broken and you can take advantage of the state to deal a lot of damage to them. The spells no longer pause the game, apart from the really big ones at the end, so the combat is very quick and free-flowing, and mages are now a lot more useful, which apparently in the original was not the case. You can also now call in allies outside of battle, or other Star Ocean protagonists, to perform abilities. Second Story's combat is the biggest highlight of the game for me, with a lot of action and fun packed in. The system feels great to play in regardless of what character you're using. I will admit I did prefer melee units to the magic users at the back because they were more active, but I still enjoyed both. On top of all this, you have formations that give bonuses depending on how well you're doing over the course of several battles, and strategies. I rarely have used strategizing other party members' AI in other RPGs, but it was frankly necessary at times for me with Second Story. However, the difficulty was a little hard to pin down, because at least for me on Galaxy difficulty, the regular enemies and 90% of the bosses were a breeze to get through. The reason I kept going on that difficulty though is because those 10% of bosses that weren't a breeze were an absolute nightmare. I could have spent a lot of time switching between difficulties to try and find one that balanced out to a tough but fair experience for me, but that felt like more energy than I was ready to expend on a quest for difficulty balancing. I simply wish the game had been better at doing that balancing for me, especially with the toughest bosses, where I felt at times I was helpless before massive damage spells spammed within 5 seconds of each other. Each battle you fight and level up you get, your characters gain skill points and battle points. Skill points are used to upgrade skills that in turn level up and unlock specific specialties. These specialties include things like fishing and cooking, and can combine with other party members to get super specialties. I just wish cooking was actually useful. Please, just let me use the food in battle. On the whole though, the specialties are very helpful to use to get better items, upgraded equipment, and the like. On top of that, it is through these specialties that you can summon a bunny you can use to travel quickly around the world when fast travel isn't possible, or Bodyguard, which takes on enemies in the overworld to either give you free experience or an advantage when fighting them. Upgrading certain skills increases your character's stats, so make sure to use your points when you can. Battle points then are used in 2 different ways, upgrading character-specific arts and gaining battle skills which give certain boosts during a fight. A lot more straightforward in their utility as compared to the specialties, but just as useful and necessary for tackling the toughest enemies of the game. This system is where you can expend a lot of time to become incredibly powerful if you wish. You don't have to, and can still complete the game fine, but the return on investment in these areas is significant. You'll have plenty of chances to do so as well, with a level cap at 255. I beat the final boss on my first run, having barely reached level 100. I think this system is part of what makes Star Ocean the Second Story R special, and I did enjoy going through all of the specialties and battle skills to figure out which ones would work best for my party. The last thing that I spent time on in-game was the private actions. In town, you can set things to private action where the rest of your party will disperse, and you can find events with them or with random other characters as well. These events are primarily how you boost the relationships between different characters that lead to the various different endings you can obtain. There are also unique private actions depending on if you are Claude or Reyna, or an altered perspective if it's an event between Claude and Reyna. I liked these glimpses into what the characters were doing and feeling, and the only thing I would want from this system would be more. You can very easily grow Claude and Reyna's relationship with each other, but every other character is a lot harder due to limited events and time. If we had more, I think that would have alleviated some of the issues I had with the other characters and their involvement in the game and the story. Visually, the remake has unsurprisingly made incredible improvements to the original, starting with the landscape and visual style. Based on the HD 2D system, the environments are incredibly vibrant, and it makes every location look amazing, and the landmarks you can find around the land stand out even more. In my original video leading up to the release, I expressed my reservations about the sprites on the more detailed backgrounds. I wasn't even paying attention to that during the game. I was just sucked into the world. In part, that was the case because the character art that pops up occasionally is amazing. I do wish there was more variety in poses and expressions, but that's a nitpick. Otherwise, the game is a treat for the eyes. Musically, the soundtrack has also been updated brilliantly by Motoi Sakuraba, and had a great blend of tracks for every part of the game regardless of location or circumstance. The animated opening and music highlights both the amazing new visuals and the music, although it strangely doesn't actually play during the game itself, it's just in a separate menu on the starting screen. The voice acting for the most part was good. The main cast clearly put in some thought and consideration into their performances. The only area I would say stood out in a not so good way with regards to voice was the lack of diversity in voices of the important side characters. At least in English, the side characters shared the same actor a lot of the time, and there didn't appear to be a lot of effort distinguishing voices between them. This choice had the effect of reducing my interest in the characters when it felt like they were as interchangeable as their voices. Much like the visuals, the UI and UX have been significantly upgraded and are vastly better than the original. The quality of life features such as a more detailed map are a big part of that, but the biggest addition is, of course, fast travel. I can't imagine doing everything that I did in the remake in the original game, where I would have had to trudge back through the lands constantly to check on private actions and other missions. Star Ocean: The Second Story R's presentation is a near perfect example of how to update, revamp, and rework a game while maintaining the quality and integrity of the original. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is undoubtedly a good game that I had a lot of fun with. What few issues I had do seem intrinsic to the series in the original game, which does make me wary of trying other games in the series, but I can't deny the enjoyment that this particular game gave me. The game is a treasure to fans of the series, and I can attest is a great start for those looking to see what the Star Ocean series is all about. Let me know what you think of Star Ocean: The Second Story R if you have played it or think you may play in the future. Thank you to Square Enix for providing me with a code to the game for review purposes. Give the video a like if you enjoyed, share it around to your friends, and thank you again to all my subscribers. If you are not already subscribed, please do consider hitting the button to keep up with my videos. Have a great day, and happy gaming.